This is a video on how to change the blade on a Ryobi electric mower. And the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you remove the batteries along with the safety disconnect. And getting in the habit of removing both of those things is kind of a good thing before you do something like this, because if you forget one or the other, well, you at least remember to remove something. Once you flip your lawnmower on its side, you will want to do a quick visual inspection. Check for any damage to the deck. And in my case, there is a little bit of a crack right here where some of the material got chipped out by the blade. And I'm not too worried about it since there is still this outer piece of plastic, but it's just something I'm going to keep an eye on. Maybe fill this void with some JB weld or figure out a way to replace some of that plastic that's missing. And to remove the blade, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need a short 2x4. This one's 14 inches in length. And you're going to need a ratcheting wrench with a 15mm socket, along with the appropriate Ryobi 20-inch blade. In my case, it's the AC4029. And thankfully, it does come with some instructions that are fairly decent, so, yeah. And to remove the blade, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use this 2x4 as a way to wedge the blade to stop it from spinning freely. You don't want to bend the blade though, because you might risk, you will risk bending the shaft on the mower. And I've already pre-loosened this, but it will be tight that first turn. But then from there, you just turn it counterclockwise until it comes loose. And you may want to hold the blade in place, otherwise it's going to want to flop around. There's another thing you'll be mindful of. This metal washer stops the shaft from spinning, so you're going to want to hold that down too. It's kind of a four-hand job, unfortunately. That's why I need a 2x4. Oops. Alright, so I pull off this metal washer and this little plastic bracket. And then from there, you can remove the blade. I would recommend pulling out the fan, giving it an inspection, make sure it's not too dirty. And then this is a spacer. And then you just want to check inside of this area for debris. Make sure it's nice and clean. And when you put the spacer back on, make sure the flat side's facing the bottom, like this. And you put the fan on, whoops, with the fan blades towards the top of the mower. And then you take the brand new blade behind me, and you're going to want to put that on the correct orientation. Move this out of the way. There's only one way this can go on, so you can't put this on backwards because it has a little half moon and a rounded square. And you can't put it on upside down because, well, the half moon only goes one way. So you put it on so everything goes through the holes just nice and neat like that. Take the plastic spacer, it has these lips. Those go on the opposite sides of the blade. And then you got your washer. You'll notice that the washer has flat sides that match up with the shaft. So that'll go on. And the shaft spins independently of the blade. The blade's actually spinning around the shaft right now, but the shaft is spinning, and this little washer is what spins the blade assembly, because these little side indents are what engage the assembly as a whole. And you're going to need your 2x4 again to kind of help wedge the blade. And remember not to wedge it too hard because you don't want to bend your blade. And then I need the nut that I lost. Where did I set it? There it is. And when I'm putting nuts back on, I like to spin them backwards a couple times. And you'll feel it skip once the thread's in line. And then you can start spinning it clockwise to tighten it. And when you're screwing the blade back down, you're going to want to make sure that you put pressure on this spacer. So I kind of have my thumb on the spacer, and then I have these two fingers behind the blade, just kind of brace. And then I have my two other fingers on top. And I'm just going to put this in the correct position for tighten. And basically just start tightening it. If you accidentally let the washer come free like this, things won't work properly. So then what you're going to want to do is get everything lined up, and then you'll push the washer down, and if it doesn't line up with the indentations of the shaft, you can just kind of rotate the blade assembly until it hits the right spot, and then just kind of hold it back down again. If you don't get everything lined up correctly, the blade won't spin correctly, and you do risk damaging something. Alright, so now I have it tight enough where the stuff's not going to spin free, and I'm using the 2x4 as a way to brace it so I can tighten this accordingly. I believe it says like 300 some odd torque pounds of weight or whatever, but I don't have torque wrench, so you're just going to want to tighten it down nice and tight. But not too tight, because you don't want to snap the shaft or strip the threads. So I got it pretty tight, but I think I'm going to tighten just a little bit more. Alright, I can't budge that anymore. And definitely tighten by hand. Don't use like a pipe on the end of your wrench so you can get more leverage on it. But you definitely want to make sure it's nice and tight so nothing comes loose. And just kind of spin it freely by hand like this. Make sure it's not hitting the sides. Make sure it's not flopping around or acting weird. And then next thing will be is a power on test. Alright, so once you've gotten the blade tightened down nice and good, obviously you're going to want to put your battery in the safety disconnect back. And then you will, whoops, tripod's going wild. You'll go to your little handle here and just do a quick test. You want to have the lawnmower over concrete so you can feel what it sounds, or feel what it's doing and hear what it sounds like. And I'm just going to start it for a brief second. Just long enough to kind of hear. There's nothing immediately alarming, so I'm going to run a little bit longer. And everything sounds normal. I would recommend that after you use it to mow, you go through, take the battery and the safety disconnect out, flip it over, check to make sure everything still looks good, and then just give the bolt another quick turn of the wrench. Obviously don't force it, but just make sure that it didn't like vibrate loose or anything. Kind of like what you do after you rotate your tires on a car. But hopefully that's helpful, and thanks for watching.